Welcome to Legal 123s with ByrdAdatto. Legal issues simplified through real client stories and real-world experiences. Creating simplicity in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back to Legal 123s with ByrdAdatto. I'm your host, ByrdAdatto, with my co-host, Michael Byrd.
Thanks, Brad. As a business and healthcare law firm, we represent clients in multiple business sectors, especially healthcare.
Mm-hmm.
This season, we're diving deep into the exhilarating and terrifying process of opening a business. Our theme this season is starting a business.
Now, Michael, starting a business is just one season of a business. For those hearing it for the first time, just give a quick overview. What are the other seasons?
Yeah, so there are 4 seasons of a business. There's the building season, starting a business. There's the operating season, running a business. There's the scaling season, growing a business, and the buying and selling season, which is exactly what it sounds like when you're ready to sell your practice. So this podcast season, we have been living in the building season.
Yeah. And today I'm real excited. We have our friends and longtime clients on the show with us to share their story about starting their medical practice.
I know the audience is going to love hearing this real life perspective, but Brad, I have some important stuff to go over with you first.
I didn't do it. It wasn't me. Am I in trouble? Well, first off, am I in trouble?
You're not in trouble, Brad.
If it happened, it was an accident.
I'm getting suspicious. You do have a guilty look on your face. No, I want to revisit a conversation you and I had recently. I thought this needs to be on the air.
Uh-oh.
You were telling me about your son Ellis's birthday party, and I realized that you and I are at the end of an era with our kids being grown up on birthday parties.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. My son is a senior in high school, and when they start getting that age, they start kind of shifting us to what they wanted. But he decided to get the gang back together, and they were going to go to Dave & Buster's, which, for those not familiar with Dallas, it's a place where you just pour money into machines and kids get something out of it. But we ended up having it on a snow day here in Dallas. So not only were the school was the schools already closed, but people were afraid to drive because there was like a slight bit of white powder on the ground, and so people showed up. But they had a blast. So that's the good news.
Okay, well, so that sounds very similar to the types of parties my kids, and of course, for those in the audience that don't know, I have an army of kids.
Yes,
I have 5 of them, mostly grown up. But my 2 oldest kids are actually old enough that we had a couple of Chuck E. Cheese birthday parties back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
And they also got game cards, Brad, but it was a little bit different than that. I mean, I actually think I heard a stand-up say that Chuck E. Cheese was actually where COVID started.
Well, yeah. Well, and the funny thing is, I'm sure most parents who have done the Chuck E. Cheese experience, they have done it. I don't think we ever had a party there, but I know I went to a lot of them. And I still remember one young kid at the party started just completely freaking out when the curtains opened up and the rats started singing and playing the music, and they didn't know what was going on.
Between the kid getting freaked out by the rat, or back then, they still sold alcohol there, and so the line for adults to get a pitcher of beer was longer than the line to order food, and rightfully so.
Yeah.
All right. Well, talk a little bit. What are some of your most memorable birthday parties that either you got put together for Madeline and Ellis, or or that you attended?
I think during COVID, Madeline had a birthday party at her house. This is, I guess, when you were kind of allowed to get back together, and they brought a zoo to her house, and we had a kangaroo in our house, we had monkeys in our house, we had hedgehogs. I mean, we literally had a kangaroo with the diaper on, just bouncing around our house, checking out, started opening up our kitchen cabinets and stuff. So I had to watch this, literally a kangaroo bounce around my house. It was kind of cool, but that was a lot of fun because it was kind of like the first thing you could do after COVID, but still was at your house with literally a zoo in your house.
I know for me, in 7th and 8th grade for my daughter, who's now 26, that all of a sudden she had 2 years in a row a party where the entire school was invited. It was like at a church gym.
Oh my gosh.
Actually wasn't expensive at all, but it was insane. And she had gone from, I thought we were done with birthday parties, and it went to this extreme deal where I was chaperoning a birthday party. Yes, it was crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I guess speaking of gyms, for parents in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, they all probably have heard of Little Gym. And I know that we've been to a lot of little gym parties, and I remember at one of Ellis's birthday parties, some kid falling down and screaming that he was in pain and hurt, and the parents were like, "You're fine, you're fine, you're fine." And then later on, we get a text from the mom, he broke his arm.
Oh, yeah. I have.
How about you? Do you have any horror stories?
The little gym, I mean, the birthday parties where all the dads are standing there staring at each other while the kids are, doing their thing. Those types of parties I do not miss at all. But I started talking about this today, Brad, because I read an article. I've been hearing about these over-the-top kid birthday parties that have escalated in recent years so that they can be posted on social media platforms like Instagram. You know what social media is?
I've heard of it. It's
Okay.
that thing that people put things on.
Yes.
Okay.
Snapchat and TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so there have been, I read an article about $100,000+ birthday parties being spent on kids.
Okay. Well, I guess you invited hundreds of kids to one of your birthday parties. Is that your idea of outlandish one?
It was not $100,000.
Okay.
No. It was not nowhere close, but yeah.
All right. Well, our guests for this show have been patiently waiting, staring at us, trying to figure out what's going on. Maybe we should bring them on and start talking to them about starting a business.
Okay. Yeah, let's do that. All right. Today, joining us are Stephen and Sara Camp, husband and wife team. We'll start with Sara. Sara is a nurse practitioner. She is a TCU undergrad,
Go
bachelor's
Frogs.
in nursing, 2 master's degrees from University of Pennsylvania, financial accounting certificate from Harvard, blends some time on the clinic side, and primarily manages the business and marketing for Camp Plastic Surgery. And she has 2 children with Stephen, Zoe and Winston, of Instagram fame. I keep up with them actively through that route. And then also joining us is Stephen Camp, married to the mentioned Sara. He is an A&M undergrad, Texas Tech School of Medicine, did his general surgery residency at the Carolinas, University of Utah, plastic and reconstructive surgery as a chief resident, and then did his fellowship with Dr. Dan Mills. I hope I did you guys justice. Sara, Stephen, welcome.
Thank you. We're so glad to be here.
Well, we got to start off with some hot sports opinions here. We're going to hit you pretty hard right in the beginning. Have you guys, you have younger ones, so have you guys thrown one of these outlandish birthday parties for those kiddos?
Have we? I was trying to think when you were talking about it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I can tell you that we've been to a lot of little gym scenarios.
Yeah.
We have these kind of indoor bounce house arenas,
Yes.
called Pump It Up, which we mercifully aged out of.
Yes.
Yes.
So our kids are like 10 and 12 right now, and we've done kind of like small group gatherings. I'm trying to think of a birthday party of more than 10 or 15 kids, and it's all been fairly tame. I mean, I would say listening to you guys, I feel like so blessed. I mean, we must be touched by the light. And so I'm worried about next year now because I'm like, it can't stay this good forever.
Well, Fort Worth's a pretty grounded area,
Yes.
so that's what we'll bank on that one.
Yes, exactly.
All right.
I think we've done pretty well.
Yeah.
Let's
But
talk.
Zoe's turning 13, so she might want something big this year.
Okay, we'll have to revisit that later.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
So I'd love to hear from each of you to introduce Camp Plastic Surgery. Talk a little bit about your practice that's now been in existence for a while now, and just introduce the audience to your practice.
All right, Stephen, you kick it off.
Yeah. So this is, about 11 plus years of being out of residency training and essentially practicing plastic surgery. And initially started in a group practice and really felt, fortunate to find a situation where I could walk in and, essentially try and cultivate patients and grow a patient following and, spend some time in the emergency rooms and doing the spectrum of plastic surgery, which includes a lot of different things. It includes, things like breast cancer. It includes, injuries in the emergency room. And then the things that I do now, which is obviously cosmetic surgery, where we're dealing with, facial aging, post-pregnancy related changes, and obviously the whole spectrum of skin care, injectables, laser therapies, which we've really gravitated towards. And so my practice was very broad at first, and I had from the very beginning a focused interest on aesthetics and in facial aging, and those kinds of procedures. And fortunately, my patients, gravitated towards those components, and I was able to focus my practice on that. And I made a decision to really try and craft an experience for my patients that would cater to appointment times, one-on-one discussions, customizing treatment plans in a way where I wasn't being pulled in multiple different directions. And so that was the impetus for what I wanted to do. And so that's what our practice is. It's a comprehensive practice dedicated to really facial aging, skincare, and moms.
Yeah.
So, my big demographic is moms, mommy makeover patients, wanted breast lifts, tummy tucks. And 10 years later, they're all worried about their neck and their eyelids. And so I've kind of grown into that fusion, if that makes sense. And what we wanted was a by appointment, comfortable, discreet setting that could be very, very patient-centered, patient-oriented, without any other external distractions. And so that's kind of how I would summarize our practice, but it was also the driving force behind I need to do something like this on my own, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's a great explanation about who you guys are, and we're going to take a step back to where we, again, this theme is of the show is focusing on starting a business. So when you started your practice, as you said, almost a few years back now, what was the first thing you did when you decided to start this practice?
So the first thing I said, what's my vision? So my vision is I want my patients to be able to come visit us, learn about our procedures and treatments, and essentially be seen quickly, comfortably, and extremely high level, just like you would at a fine hotel or a nice restaurant. So I wanted a different experience than most of medicine, where there's an exchange of different types of cards, a lot of back and forth. So I wanted the experience to feel very welcoming. And so I think the first thing I said is I want my experience to be different than that of going to a hospital. And so how am I going to create that experience? And then what do I need around me? So I said, well, I know I'm a surgeon, and I know how to do surgery, and I know how to do some aesthetic treatments, but what do I not know how to do? So the first thing I said is, what are the things that I want? What's the vision? And what are the things I don't know how to do? I don't know how to answer phones. I don't know how to create service menus. I don't necessarily know how to do accounting. I mean, I can make change at Chick-fil-A with my kids, but I don't know how to do accounting. I don't know what I'm supposed to do and offer people that work for me in terms of benefits or salary. I don't know how to hire employees. And so I asked other people in other businesses, namely Sarah's dad, who was not in medicine, but ran businesses for many, many years. And so he started asking me questions that I had no answer to. And he goes, well, who's going to help you with your numbers? I was like, what do you mean? He was like, where's your accounting? He goes, where's your accounting? And I said, I don't have one. I just file my returns at the end of the year. And he just started shaking his head. He goes, how about your legal? And I was like, well, my dad's a lawyer, this, that, and the other. And, I just, my patients are happy with me. He's like, no, not malpractice, you idiot. He's like, how are you going to hire people? What are you doing? I said, I don't know. And he's like, okay, who's financing this? And so it became very obvious how much I didn't do, how much I didn't know, and what external resourcing I needed. So I needed legal help. I needed banking and financial help. I needed accounting help. And then I needed infrastructure within the practice. And so we basically defined, hey, this is what we want to do, but how are we going to get there? And so it started out with making a list of all of our deficits. And then that translated into how are we going to fund all this, which is kind of a nice segue into we need to figure out who our supporting team was going to be and how to build a business plan. Those are the things that within literally 5 days, I realized I had no specific training in and no, existing help, if you will. So I had to go find it. And so, let Sara kind of chime in.
I think we were married. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and she had a lot of skills she brought to the table from her work as well too, which I'll let her describe. But.
You ready for me?
We're ready.
Okay. Well, so yes, I'm a nurse practitioner, and I'd been working in cardiac surgical critical care, but for the 6 years before we went out on our own, I'd been working actually for the American Heart Association as the national director of, I think it was, my title changed a bunch, but I'd been working in corporate development and in marketing and in research. So the national office kind of throws you wherever they want, where they're seeing you grow. And so I've been writing business plans, I've been writing grants, I've been learning how to put budgets together, just all sorts of cool stuff. And so when I was looking at what Stephen was doing in his group, I thought, I think we can kind of go off and do this on our own. I think we'd be a lot more happy because both of us really are entrepreneurs. We're not W-2 people. And I kind of felt that way even in high school and college. Like I always knew I wanted to own a business, but I didn't know what that business was. And then I went into nursing, which is kind of interesting. But I spent about a year just really studying and learning about plastic surgery before I finally told the AHA, I think I'm going to quit. And it was really hard for me to tell them I was going to quit because I loved my job, but I loved him more. And so...
Congrats, Stephen.
Yeah, good job. Yeah, but I was working full-time for the AHA, and but at night, I just really fell in love with plastic surgery. Just the elegance of it, like it being more like a high-end, restaurant or a high-end hotel, like he said, and that entrepreneurial spirit that you can have. And so I started writing our business plan, and same as he said, like I did have understanding of how to put together a balance sheet and a P&L, but I'm not at the accountant level or the lawyer, obviously not a lawyer. And I was like, well, we do need these experts to help us. And so, yeah, that's when we made the phone call to y'all.
Yeah.
Through some friends of ours that knew y'all, and thank God you took the call. So it's kind of our background.
I have vivid memories of that time together, and they're good.
Yes.
They're good memories. It was I felt it was a privilege to be kind of by your side through that.
Well, thank you. It was actually one of the things that I thought about when you asked the question, what do you need if you're going to do this? Jump off on your own. And what I said was, if you do work in this type of business, you need an advisor who's willing to talk to you like you did at night and on the weekends, because sometimes that's the only time that we were free, or it was when I was having a complete panic attack and I knew I could just call. I remember being at Disneyland with our kids randomly, and I was getting weird phone calls, and I was like, I need to call Michael, and you were so gracious to take my phone calls and just walk me off the ledge, and I'm literally like sitting outside the aerial ride, and I'm like, oh my God, but you helped me. So,
there's lots of emotions that go with starting a business. Well, I'd love to hear a little bit from both of you guys, because we have audience members that are maybe thinking about starting a business, and there is. It's not for the faint of heart. I mean, not only do you need to have that entrepreneurial spirit, but there's a lot of emotions that go with leaving your current known quantity and then starting on your own. Love to kind of hear y'all's journey.
Well, I mean, I can jump in and just say you're leaving a job where we were making a great salary. We were fully protected in that way. Our kids were in private school, and like, let's just jump off the cliff and not have any money. And that was crazy. And we were going to have to commit to, and it's still this way. It's 24/7. Like, it never stops. And we're in this now, I think, for 8 years since we went out on our own. And someone said to me a couple weeks ago, well, it's so easy for you guys. And I said, well, it's fun, but it's not. It never stops, and so if you want to do it, you just have to know it's a lot of work, but it's fun work. But it's definitely, we have our moments of oh my God, this is a lot of work. So
Yeah, I think one of the things that has happened since we decided to open up our own practice, our own business, if you will, and then kind of learn how to surround ourselves with good resource. And that can come in many different forms. There isn't just one way of doing it, and there isn't a requisite list of things. But one of the deficiencies that I ran into, or I felt like I found, is a lot of people that had been in practice that I leaned on, that were my mentors, if you will, had been doing it for quite some time. And I was 35 years old starting practice, taking advice from people at 55 and 65 years. Mm-hmm. And I think that there's this, you guys talked about the seasons of different practices. There's this portion of time where you have almost amnesia of what the startup and growth phases are really like.
Yes.
And I think the thing when I'm talking to people who are leaving residency or trying to contemplate, hey, you did this, tell me what you did, is tempering the excitement with the terror. Like she described being excited about being an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And I remember being terrified.
Yeah, you were.
And, and part of it was because, like, as a surgeon, I was used to understanding, like, I don't do anything without a diagnosis and then a requisite plan that leads to my treatment. So essentially, I'm never walking into something not feeling like I know what I'm getting myself into. And I think when it comes to taking financial chances of building and then kind of correlating how many people are going to come visit you on a given month translates into the real numbers, right? That's how businesses work. That is not how the physician's mind works, at least not out of the gate.
Right.
At least mine didn't at all. And so there's this gap between you've seen your mentors do it, but like how exactly did they get started? What was the process of getting started? And what was the process of evolving? Those, I think, were the things that we learned along the way. And a mistake I see a lot of people make is saying, well, you need to budget this or budget that, and they skimp on the help. And so they try and do too much of the accounting on their own, and they try and have incomplete human resources programs and employee manuals and other tools that can really be streamlined with the right help. And so I think we go to these conferences, and even in our professional societies, which I know you guys participate in, and as an aside, thank you for that. There's this presentation, and there's almost an insinuation after you listen to speakers talk about finance, about practice management, about employees, about EMR, that you just basically unpack each one of those and then put it on your own jump drive, and then you make it happen yourself. And I think that's the gap, is realizing what are my advisors going to look like and how closely do I lean on them? And then to the the credit of what you guys helped us do and the friendship that's ensued from that, find people that are responsive. Obviously there's reputation and there's hiring, but if you can find a responsive group of people, that means that they're invested in your goals, they believe in you, and that, their success is your success and vice versa. And so I don't know if that's in line with what you were looking for, but those are the things that I learned, is that there's, like we learn about planning for the future and writing a business plan, but exactly what's the flow. And then there's a time course in doing these kinds of things. And that's what I kind of, learned along the way. The other thing is that people get impatient. And I want to remind anybody who's starting a med spa, a business, a plastic surgery practice, that what you're doing very much in all of medicine is being a lifelong student. Mm-hmm. And approach this in that vein, and that will help ease some of the fear and allow patience to enter into the equation. If you put yourself in a phase of permanent development, so people will ask me, like, your practice looks like it's gotten better. It looks like you guys have been successful. How did you get there? So their question is like, it's a very binary question. Like, how did you get there? And my answer really is reductive in the sense that it's constant development. So if I'm developing myself and I'm developing my employees and I'm developing each facet of my practice, we can't help but spontaneously and organically grow in a way where we're supporting each other. And so I think the biggest takeaway for me is become a developer of myself, become a developer of my team, and don't look for people who have everything. No one has everything. I don't have everything, and no employee I have will ever either. But I can have people with the right mindset. And then when we put that together, that creates our culture. And I think the development and the consistency of having a culture in the office is all a byproduct of that thinking and the resource of help we've gotten from people like you guys.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Sarah, do you have any final piece of advice before we let you guys go and go on to a commercial break?
On that question, or just advice on business plans?
Or any final piece of advice for someone thinking about starting a business?
I think just my best piece of advice is be good to your staff. I think it's really my most proud achievement. We've had almost zero turnover in the 7-8 years we've done this, and we've grown from a staff of 3 to 25.
Wow.
And I consider them family, and they come to me with what they need. And it's so easy to be kind. And I have my slip ups, I have my moments when I'm having a bad day. And when you have that, you have to go apologize immediately.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that I know there are bosses out there that treat their employees poorly, and they have high turnover rates, and it shows in those offices. And we have a great office, and we love our team. So that's my biggest piece of advice, is treat your people well.
Amazing. Well, I can't believe our time just flew by. You guys were incredible. Thank you for sharing part of your story. I think it'll be incredibly helpful for people to kind of hear the realness of what it's like. What we'll do next is we'll say goodbye. We'll go to a commercial, and then Brad will come back and do a quick little legal wrap-up.
Sure.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Love it.
Many business owners use legal counsel as a last resort rather than as a proactive tool that can further their success. Why? For most, it's the fear of unknown legal costs. ByrdAdatto's Access Plus program makes it possible for you to get the ongoing legal assistance you need for one predictable monthly fee. That gives you unlimited phone and email access to the legal team, so you can receive feedback on legal concerns as they arise. Access Plus, a smarter, simpler way to access legal services. Find out more. Visit ByrdAdatto.com today.
Welcome back to Legal 123s with ByrdAdatto. I'm your host, ByrdAdatto. Still here with my co-host, Michael Byrd. Now, Michael, this season, our theme is starting a business. And we've been really camping out on this building
nice
season.
dad joke.
I know. And there's a lot of things happening with this. And, just hearing the camps talk about how terrifying it can be to be an entrepreneur and finding the right people through this journey and how hard that can be for them. But at the end of the day, they actually needed a business entity to start. So maybe we can just give a little bit more information on camping out on building the business entity.
Sure. So from a purely blocking and tackling perspective, to form a business entity requires two big steps. One is you form something in the state, and in this case, it would need to be a professional entity. If you're providing medical services, it has to be something that's allowed. So a professional entity, and then you have to get an EIN number. Now, what I will caution everyone, and we've talked about this at various points in other shows, is that it's not as – there's some strategy that goes into it, some real opportunity that goes. I would spend more time talking about it, but there's a new law that comes out. I'd love for you to talk about this Corporate Transparency Act.
Yes, audience members, if you don't know about the CTA, or the Corporate Transparency Act, this is a new law that the federal government came up with as a means to make your life miserable. It's extremely heavy administrative. It's really there to help, protect people from finding out whether or not these entities are real or not. And there's a certain information that you're going to have to share on this federal website. And a lot of people are like, well, does it apply to me? And the vast majority of the closely held entities in the United States, it probably will. So like your certain limited liability companies or corporations or your professional entities, as Michael said, most likely will qualify. And there's certain things that make it so you won't. But so like, your Apples and your IBMs, they don't qualify, but your typical mom and pop shops do. And what all it is a notification requirement that you need to file some documentation, a lot, by the way, audience members, with the federal government that is in charge of this. And you have to do it by the end of this year if your entity was formed before the end of last year. If you were formed in 2024, which is this year, you have 90 days to do it. And then going forward for all those in 2025, when you form a new entity, the federal government expects that you give them this information within 30 days. And, I won't bore you guys to death, all the different moving pieces. You can go to the website and learn more about the Corporate Transparency Act, about what you can file, and that report's free. There's also these third-party vendors that are out there that are trying to be, a situation where they can help. But ultimately, at the end of the day, if you don't do this, you can get fined some serious money, and that's why we're trying to let you know about it. But I don't want to spend too much time on it because before we go to next week, Michael, do you have any final thoughts before we cut out of here?
Well, the Corporate Transparency Act reminds me of the scary mouse at Chuck E. Cheese. So, getting that stuff filed, I guess, would be like getting in the beer line at Chuck E. Cheese.
Sounds terrible. Well, audience members, next Wednesday we do have a special for you guys. We will be going to have a live with our audience here in Dallas, and we'll have Navy SEAL Ryan Birdman Parrott. He's going to come discussing his new mission on saving others. It's going to be a really great one because we'll have that live audience. Thanks again for joining us today. And remember, if you like this episode, please subscribe. Make sure to give us a 5-star rating and share with your friends.
You can also sign up for the ByrdAdatto newsletter by going to our website at ByrdAdatto.com.
ByrdAdatto is providing this podcast as a public service. This podcast is for educational purposes only. This podcast does not constitute legal advice, nor does it establish an attorney-client relationship. Reference to any specific product or entity does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by ByrdAdatto. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. Please consult with an attorney on your legal issues.